Hello and welcome to another episode. Today, what I really wanted to talk about is why is it so hard for us to do things that we don't think we're that good at? Like, for example, I know I said this many times, but in my childhood, I've had moments where I just couldn't bring myself to do something when I feel like I wasn't good at it. For example, when I first came to Australia, I was not that good at English. Actually, I should say I couldn't even speak it at all. So I could only say like hello and how are you, and because of that, what I did was I stayed very, very quiet. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure that I got things right. Because like the idea that someone around me would like hear me make a mistake was just so terrifying. And I'm still like that. Like if I ever wanted to learn another language, I would be exactly like that now. Like even now, I feel like I would be so afraid of making mistakes because just like the idea of saying the wrong thing or pronouncing it wrong just makes me feel really, really stupid. And I remember when I was young, I had that problem with English when I first came because I was around 7 years old when I came to Australia. And I had like almost no English. Like I think I thought I knew more English than I did because you know like when you go to school in China they do teach you a little bit of English, but it was more like how are you today, kind of really simple. So I would have no idea what people were talking about, and I remember kind of being forced in a way to say hello by my biological father at the time, and I just felt so ready to crawl into a hole because I was just so embarrassed, and that made me realize how much I hated making mistakes. And when I was even younger, like this was when I was like 5 or 6 years old maybe, that I wouldn't draw on the blackboard. I mean, I wouldn't draw on a piece of paper because of the picture that on the blackboard was too complicated for me. I just could not bring myself to do it until I learned the basics of how to do this, like how to draw a circle, how to draw a square, how to draw everything, and put the shapes together. And then I realized, oh, so that's how you draw. It wasn't that hard. Like, that's another example that I've had when I was growing up. Like I couldn't even draw on a piece of paper. And when you think about like little kids just scribble all the time, but for some reason, even at this age of 6, I had this like fear of not doing it perfectly. I was just so afraid of making mistakes and doing it not as good as I wanted to that I couldn't even do it at 6 years old. And usually you don't think of kids at that age learning that kind of stuff. So to me, I always feel like I never learned that from someone else. It was just innate. It was like something that I've always had trouble with ever since I was really, really young. It was not certainly like nobody told me, oh, you shouldn't try because you're not good. It was just something that I was almost like, I felt like I've always felt that way. So anyway, and then when I came to Australia, I did this, when I was younger, I had piano lessons with one of my mum's friends who was a really, really, really talented like opera singer. Like her voice was like, ooh, like really powerful, like opera singer. So but I don't mean powerful as in like she's powerful, but like powerful as in her voice carried through the stage, you know, that kind of powerful. So anyway, we used to do those piano exams like that, like, you know, the passing the exam meant you can teach piano. I'm not quite sure if that's still the case now, but yeah, and to do that, you have to do some singing. And she would be like, can you sing this note? And I'd just be like, nope. Through the whole lesson, which was an hour, she would be like trying to get me to sing that one note, and I refused every single time. It took like 3 or 4 lessons for me to even make a single sound because I just couldn't do it. I felt, and it's crazy because during the time she was really frustrated because I was being so difficult. Like I'd never explained myself. Like, I'm sorry about cat is in the background. It's just distracting me. But anyway, so I remember she was so frustrated. She would be like, why are you doing this? Why are you not trying? I just do this one note. And I just refused. And the weird thing is at the time I couldn't express myself or explain why I couldn't do it. I just felt too stupid to try. And what I did was I just kept cracking my knuckles really, really hard. I was like, ugh. And then she would just talk about how difficult I was being. Like she couldn't understand why I just refused to try. So that was the problem, is that I couldn't even sing a note. And I think eventually she got so upset and kept urging me so much that I eventually gave up and I just did it. And then I felt like, okay, once I started singing a little bit, then I was like, okay, fine. And then I slowly started doing it, but it took a very long time for me to like be able to sing in front of her. And I just remembered how difficult it was. And it's so weird because I always think about this, like if I was a teacher and I was trying to get a child to sing, I wouldn't be caring about how well they sing. I'd be really happy if they tried, and just like even if I was really talented at something, I would never want a child to feel like they're not that good or something. So it's just something that it wasn't in my mind at the time. I just thought about how stupid I would sound. I wasn't thinking about how the teacher would feel. Like I doubt my piano teacher would care about whether I sounded good or not. She just wanted me to sing, you know. She wouldn't be sitting there going, oh, I'm such a good singer, look at you, look at how horrible you sing. Like, she would not be doing that. But for some reason, I just felt so stupid to sing badly, or what I thought I sang badly. Because, you know, like, as a kid, I've always just thought, oh, I couldn't sing, or I couldn't hit the note, or whatever. It was just mainly because she was so good that I just felt really, really dumb in front of her that I couldn't do it. So, and today, like, I feel like I still have that little part of me that if someone is really good at something, I feel like I just like pales in comparison. I guess it has to do with that scarcity mindset where you feel like if someone else is really good, then that means I'm not that good. So you can't have two successful people at the same time in my mind. And I guess like you have to look back to your childhood and think about like whether you were conditioned to think that way. Maybe you've had certain situations that made you feel that way. Because I know when I was younger, there was like a lot of scarcity, like in terms of like my biological father often would say things like, oh, if you don't behave, you're going to be like set back or whatever, like just scaring me with things. So maybe like that also created some kind of thing. But also it could be because I've had like several separations with my close family members, like my grandfather, which I had to like separate from it. That affected me a lot, and maybe that could have caused some of that scarcity mindset. I've like in my mind, I may have just felt like, oh, like I couldn't have everyone that I loved with me. I don't know, like I don't understand the psychology of it very well, but this is just what I feel like I was going through. So anyway, I just felt like I was just couldn't handle the fact that I wasn't that good at something. And that's probably what affected me throughout my whole life. And I remember even when I was doing like a university course, I did actually try to do a university course. I don't know if I've ever talked about this very often, but in 2006, I did try to do a university course. I tried to do teaching. So I thought I would be, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, because I went into a work experience where I went to my old primary school, and we just spent a lot of time that week just, you know, chatting with the students. And that school was a really good school. So the kids are really nice. And I was in the second graders class, and they were just so cute and so sweet and just always wanted attention. It was just so sweet, and I loved it. So I thought, okay, I want to be a teacher. But I didn't really think a lot about like, oh, if I went into a different school, maybe the setting would be different and there'd be like more trouble with like how I would interact with them, or like older kids, because there's always much harder for me to interact with older kids because I just felt like inferior in some ways. So I didn't really think about all that when I went into the work experience. All I thought was, oh, I'm gonna love it. And then I just went into the degree like blindly thinking that I could do this. So I went through about 2.5 years, I think, of doing this degree. And besides that the assignments were pretty hard, I always struggled with the most important thing was like the actual teaching. So when I went to the school and I had to prepare lessons and stuff, what I found impossible was that I felt like I was just not good at all. And there was a teacher who was sitting at the back watching my every move and like, you know, seeing how well I taught the class. And I just felt so stupid. And it was like the one thing that like really, really stopped me from being able to do it properly. And I just felt so embarrassed and so stupid. And I realized how much I hated feeling like I was inferior, or I just couldn't do this really, really well. And like, and it's like, and it's weird because when I feel like I can do something better, Like maybe if I had a skill that I was better, I feel so proud. It's like, oh my god, I just want to like show. But as soon as it's something that I'm not good, I just feel like I want to hide and crawl in holes. So anyway, that caused me to really have a very tough time with my so my classes back then. And before I knew it, I had they offered me a job, which was really cool. Like, they just like, do you want to earn some money with doing after school care? So I went into the after school care looking after about like 25 kids or something, and at first it was really good. I just enjoyed my time there. I didn't really do much. The lady was just like happy for me to just hang there. Like, seriously, I didn't have to do anything. And then she left, and there was a new person who came in, and she was very different expectations. She had different expectations for me. So she would be like, oh, you have to interact with the kids. And that's when I found so hard, and I had struggled so much because I just felt so stupid. Like, I couldn't interact with the students in a way that I just felt really scared to talk to them. I kind of feel the same way with like a group of people. I just felt really nervous and shy and scared that like, and when you think about it, if you're a teacher, you can't really do that. You have to like be able to interact with the kids, but I just couldn't do that. And then I realized, oh god, maybe this like teaching degree is just not for me, because I don't think I'm capable of doing that kind of stuff. So that's what I had trouble with, and eventually I dropped out of the course because I just couldn't do it. And I also found that even with some of the jobs that I did, I always felt really stupid when I did like tasks that people usually would find okay, like answering phone calls in front of other people. Like, I don't know why, but there was something really embarrassing about repeating the company name and my name over and over that I just felt really stupid. Like, I don't know what about it was. And I just, because today, even when I was out, like, see, I saw someone dressed in like a Coles uniform, and I just, like, I was not at all thinking, oh, like that guy's like, oh my god, is in a Coles uniform. I'm just thinking, like, if I was in his shoes and I was wearing the uniform, I would feel so embarrassed if I was out, like trying to catch a train or something, and I was wearing it. I just would feel so embarrassed. But when I look at him, I'm not feeling like, look at you, like, poor you, I'm not thinking these things to, like, that would be embarrassing. So why am I always feeling so embarrassed? Like, it just feels like embarrassment is my middle name. Like, I always have to deal with this horrible embarrassment that everywhere I went in my life. Like, it's just like, it feels like the things that usually people may not, although I don't know if that guy was embarrassed about wearing the uniform. I know I would just feel so embarrassed because you can't tell what people are thinking, but, he may well be very embarrassed about wearing, I don't know, but I just know that I used to, like, because I also did, I think I did, like, one of those, like, jobs where I do checkout when I was really young, and I don't remember if we had uniform, but I just remember how embarrassed I feel. Maybe we did have uniform, because I definitely remember feeling embarrassed about wearing it, and yeah, just so, just so embarrassing. And I'm just thinking, like, imagine if I didn't feel that way, all the stuff I would be able to do, because it feels like my own embarrassment is the cause of my so much like fear and unhappiness, and just that it feels like if I could find a way to get rid of that, then I could do so much more. So that's what I've always been thinking about. And the more I think about it, the more I realize just how silly it is to want to be the absolute best at something before you feel like you can show up. Like, why is it that I couldn't just draw badly, or, like, I don't know, say the wrong pronunciation? Why is it so embarrassing for me to pronounce the words wrong? Like, because sometimes I feel it's funny, because sometimes when I'm confident enough, I will try doing things and pronounce it wrong, and it's fine. But other times I'm just like, oh god, I cannot do that. For example, like, depends on the language. Like I know I was having trouble with like imitating someone's accent, but then when I got it, I was happy to do it, even though I knew that sometimes it didn't sound exactly right. So it really depends on the situation, I guess. Like, it's interesting because I do notice that Lucas has some of that too, where he doesn't want to try something that he is not that sure of. So I'm always wondering what's the reason behind him not trying to speak, because like a lot of times he'll really want me to say words, and he's interested in the words and he understands the words, but as soon as I say, can you try to say that, he's very shy about it. Like, he'll look at me and like, oh, you know, try a little bit and then just not do it. And it just so reminds me of how I am, like, with everything, just how terrified I am to get it wrong. And it just crazy that it can be so deep within you that it's something that you experience even at such a young age like I did. So, and when I'm dealing with it now these days, it's very hard still. Like, it's just because it's ingrained in me. So it's not something I can just get rid of and like just say, oh, there's gone. So what I really have to do, I guess, is really try to put myself in someone else's shoes. And that's how I deal with most situations, is trying to imagine myself as someone else and seeing like how I would react if I was someone else. Like, if I was really embarrassed about this, I just have to think, if I was someone else listening to this, how would I feel? If I didn't really care about it too much, then I shouldn't overthink it. Like, so sometimes I get embarrassed with random... This freaking fly is really pissing me off. I need to get rid of it before it drives me insane. But anyway, so I just have to really think about it. If I was someone else and I was watching this, or I was seeing this unfold, how am I going to feel? If I'm not going to be thinking like, oh, look at this embarrassment, then I shouldn't feel that way, right? I mean, it's hard. It's hard because I just have to try to remember how I feel about other people to realize how they would feel about me, because I'm definitely not going to laugh at someone for not being good at something. Like, I would want to help them out or try to help them improve or something. I definitely wouldn't be like saying, oh, look at you, look how stupid you are. I definitely wouldn't feel that way. So why am I feeling like people will be all laughing at me, right? It's just something I have to really work on. And from my experience with writing my own book at the moment, because I'm really writing my own book, and for a long time I put it off because I'm not much of a reader, and the idea of writing is very scary to me because I've never really written that much. Like, the last time I wrote anything was like 20 years ago when I wrote those like fanfics for like shows that I loved. That was the last thing I wrote. And I'm just like, oh God, I don't think I have any writing skills. How am I going to feel okay writing when there's so many amazing writers out there? Look at all these books. Like, as soon as I see these bookshelves of books, I feel inferior. It's like, oh my God, I'm never going to be as good. That's the way I feel. But if I let that stop me, I wouldn't even have done that, right? I really, really had to realize it's not about writing skills. It's not about like how good I am or how good I'm not. I can always improve. You know what? I think I've improved a lot since 2 months ago when I first started. Heck, I was even trying to use a freaking app to help rewrite everything for me because I felt like I couldn't write. And then as I got through it, as I started editing it more and more, my own work, and I started improving, I felt more confident, and now I'm happy with how I write, and I don't need the app to change my writing anymore or to like tell me how to write things. I know like the way I write is like, I'm happy with it. You know, I've reading it and going like, oh, I'm happy with what I've done. This is pretty good to me. Like, I like the way I say things. I've actually really improved. You know, it's crazy, but I would never have gotten here if I never tried. If I just thought, oh, I sucked and didn't even bother and didn't spend time with trying, I would have never gotten any better, you know. But it's thank God that I kept going with it, that I was able to improve. And it just makes me realize how much I would have missed out before because I was so embarrassed of not getting things right. And the same thing is with this writing. If I had just thought, oh, there's other people who are better writers, then I'm just leaving out all this things that's not even about how good I write. It's about my things that I've experienced in life, and that's what I like writing about. It's like my own personal experiences. Maybe one day, if I ever like, you know, have a like, I don't know, like a smash of motivation, I might like write something else that's like more like fictional. I don't know, like I just haven't really thought about that. But right now I'm enjoying the process of writing because it's my own experience, and I feel really excited to share a lot of the stuff that I know that some people are going to read and go like, wow, this is interesting. I never would have thought that. Or like I give insight to the way I think as a child, which is really, really interesting because a lot of people, even like the adults of my life, didn't understand the way I think. And I feel like if I was able to put that into words, it could help someone to understand the mindset of a child at this time going through this thing. So that's what I keep thinking of, rather than, oh no, I suck at writing. I'm thinking, what can I offer? Like what can I bring Like, instead of just thinking, oh, like, I have no skills, because skills you can always improve on. There is never a thing that, oh, you just spawn with shit skills and you improve, you know? I mean, you don't improve, or what am I saying? Like, there is no such thing as you're born with shit skills and you stay with shit skills. You'll be able to improve if you work on it. At least I believe that. I really do. Because I just, it's funny because I have a friend who reads some of it and he tells me that it's funny or something, and I never would have thought that I had this talent to write things that might be funny, because I always wanted to. And I don't like to say that I'm funny, because I feel like I'm up myself if I say that. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm so funny. You know, it's like, I don't like to say that, but if someone else says I'm funny, then I'm very, very glad, because that means, like, at least it's like, okay, I fulfilled what I wanted to, because I wanted to make part of it comedic and I wanted to make it funny. So the fact that someone has said that it's funny makes me feel much better, like, oh my god, maybe I am funny after all. So the funny thing is, oh yeah, funny, we're saying the word funny many times, funnily. The funny thing is, I've always in the past felt like I just wanted to become funnier. Like, I didn't, like, if people do think I'm funny, I've been told quite a few times by different people that they thought I was funny. But the thing is, for a long time, I thought I was really boring. I thought I was too boring. And I remember watching the lecturers on the lecture hall, like, speaking with humor and passion. And I'm like, I just want to be like that. Because back in the day, I would go up to that stage, do my speech, and it would be like dead silent with nothingness. Like, people would just be like, boring. You know, and I just imagine myself making people laugh on a stage or something. That's just always something I envision. So I was like, I'm gonna get funny. Like, I need to figure this out. So that's what I've been trying to do, like, all my life, is figure out what makes things funny and trying to make myself laugh, because that's kind of what I have to do. Because, yeah, like, I was looking up, like, what makes someone, like, how do you find out what's funny or not? Like, and then the person on one of those threads said, you gotta make yourself laugh. I was like, oh, that's good, because I do make myself laugh. At least I feel like I'm not being like a crazy, you know, like, because it's fun. Like, I don't ever want to admit, like, myself that I'm funny, because it's more for other people to judge. If they think I'm funny, I'm very glad that they think that. But I definitely, I'm not gonna say something like, I'm such a funny person. You know, it's like, so the fact that some people have said that makes me feel much better. It's like, oh yes, so that means I have gained some skills, because I have always wanted to be funny. Like, I've always wanted to be humorous and comedic, because I like making people laugh. I love seeing people happy. I love laughing myself. I love watching funny things, and I love laughing about something until my stomach hurts. I just love that feeling. I've always wanted to make people laugh. That was just something, like, inside me that I've always wanted, but I didn't start off, like, knowing how to do that. You know, I had to really figure it out. Like, it's like, just remember that if you're feeling like you're, how do I explain this? If you feel like, oh, I'm so boring, I can never be funny, just remember, I didn't always feel like, oh, I had the skill. I actually did go through a very long time feeling like I was a very boring person. I was a very boring person, and I need to learn this skill, because I just can't stand, like, just be the boring person. You know, like, I feel like I was so boring when people talk to me that I couldn't stand it. I just, like, said to myself, I need to figure this out. So that's what I've been doing, and I do look up things like how to be funny. What are the reasons why people laugh? You know, things like that. And it's a lot of things that has to do with, like, what you're expecting, what you're, like, the kind of reality you're expecting versus what come out to it. I remember reading, it was like something that is acceptable. So, like, I can't even think of an example. That's how crazy it is. Like, I cannot think of an example right now. But it's just basically saying something that might surprise someone. So exaggeration definitely works, because, like, I'll give it a really good example. Regular Show is one of my favorite shows. Regular Show, yes. It's just one of my favorite shows, because it is so funny. And one of the things that I've always laughed about is there's one episode about this little kid who they make a birthday party for. And in this episode, apparently, the little kid, they've been seeing since he was a baby, and they've been doing his birthday parties, but this specific party was about being, like, a stunt. like all about being a stuntman or something. So then like the boss was like, you know what, we need a stuntman license, so we can only do the party if someone has a stuntman license. So the two of the characters all of them had to be forced into trying to get a stuntman license. But the funny thing he said was, if like Timmy doesn't have this party, then the rest of his life is probably going to get ruined. And I just remember laughing at that line. I was like, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And it's like, what? And then I had to think, what about it is so funny? And then I thought, it's because they're exaggerating it so much. It's like, you're thinking, like, if like a little 5-year-old kid, right, having a party that got ruined, you're just thinking like, oh yeah, his day was ruined. But the fact that they said, oh, his life is going to be ruined is just so funny because it's so exaggerated. It's not something you would expect, and that's what makes it funny. So knowing that little knowledge, that's what I've been trying to work on. It's just like simple exaggerations of things can kind of make myself laugh. It's like I just don't want to say and make other people laugh, or make myself laugh. So I just like to, you know, not feel like I'm like saying that I'm funny. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's what I try to do. I try to like bring some humor in, and I really do love watching funny things, so I can kind of just decipher what's so funny about it and like bring it into, and that's what I try to do with my writing as well. I love to try to make it funny because I just want people to enjoy and have fun and read and laugh about things. That's what I've always enjoyed. So I feel like because of how I used to feel, I definitely don't want people to just look at me and think, oh, you're so funny, because I have been told that I was funny. I don't want people to just think, oh, you're so funny, I'm never going to become like that, because I certainly didn't feel confident about it at all. I was really, really worried. I felt so stupid and stuff. So if I could kind of learn some skills, then anyone can. So I just really, like, the really point of this talk is really just to make you feel like you can do things too. Like, you don't have to, like, don't feel like, oh, other people were so much better and you'll never get there. You can always improve on the skill. It's just so important to try, even if it sucks in the beginning. And even if you just can't do anything or you feel so stupid, you really got to get through that. And that's so important because of how much you will be able to learn and get better and improve if you just persist on it and not just give up. Because, like, there was this part, because I love referencing regular show because it's so funny, right? There's an episode with Happy Birthday himself. You know, they're trying to write a song to get rid of Happy Birthday, so that, you know, Happy Birthday then himself shows up and goes like, Happy Birthday, you know, like he starts singing. And it's so funny because I've took that as a like inspiration, and in my story I wrote this passage about, if giving up showed up himself, then imagine all the battles we would like fight with it, you know. Just so funny. Like, just when I think about it, it's just, even that little bit was just fun to kind of reference because of how funny that Happy Birthday himself is. Because again, it's something that you don't think of, like a birthday cake in a suit coming up to sing Happy Birthday because he himself thinks that his own song is important. That's just the concept that is funny, because it's not something you usually think about. So it really is just something unexpected and like a surprise kind of thing that makes us laugh a lot. So I tend to try to remember, like, what are some of the things that make me laugh, and why do I laugh, and things like that. So that's, like, I don't know how we got into talking about comedy when we were talking about being as good. I guess it's relevant because I've always felt like, I could never be as funny or something. So that's just something I went through, and I feel like over time I've been able to gain some of the skills, at least some of the skills. Yes, some. So, you know, I still don't know if I would be able to ever speak in front of a stage and make people laugh, though. I think that would be just too good to be true. Like, I cannot imagine that. But then again, I've never tried, so. But I just remember hating, like, just being so like dull on stage. I was just like, oh god, I hate doing the speeches and sounding so, like, you know, monotone, and everyone's just looking at me silently going like, when is this gonna be over? Or I just remember feeling so, I just want to be funny. Like, that's what I remember. Anyway, so there we go. Important thing is, try doing things even if you're not good at it. One thing I also have to remember is we always think other people are better and stuff, you know, like sometimes we'll go into the mind trap of thinking, oh, other people are just going to judge us and everything, and they're going to think all this stuff, and we feel so nervous. But what we don't realize is that other person is also a human, and they're probably worried that you're going to judge them. So they're probably worried about the same thing you are. So I really like to think that when I'm feeling like, oh, I'm just inferior or something, like instead of thinking that everyone's like this judgment thing, you know, judgment person, like he's like, ha 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 ha, how you doing? Like, I'm trying to imagine, okay, they're human too. They're going to be worried about things too. And it's like, I need to just focus on what I could do now, like focus on trying my best and just, you know, get better at it. So that's one thing I really do think it's very important, because I just cannot imagine if I didn't try to write this book, like, I just can't believe how much I've improved, like, for the past few months. I mean, 2 months. And then I realized that I know all these talented people, but they're not, you know, they probably don't feel like they can do it too. Like, it's just something that they may not have ever thought of. And I just want to encourage people who are listening to this to really try something that you might not feel confident about, that you might not know how to do, but just try it and be okay with sucking at it in the beginning, and just be okay with improving and stuff. So that's just so important. I really just love the feeling of being able to get better with something. It's such a good feeling, because like and it's just, I've learned so much from writing this. Seriously, I just keep rereading it, and I find that the best way to improve is to reread it and like to expose myself to my own crappy writing so I know how to improve it. Like, I feel like if I just wrote it once and never read it again, it'll probably sound so awful, like so amateur, but because I've read the same passage 50 times, not even exaggerating, 50 times or something, and I found like, oh, like when I read it, because I think of like that sentence in my head, and if it sounds like really awkward or doesn't flow, then I'm like, oh, is there a better way to say this? And every time I read it, I feel like I'm getting a bit more. So that's very important, I feel like, with this writing. But then again, it could be anything else is pretty much the same. As really is just practice. You'll get better if you practice it. It's like if you know, I'm same with drawing, you know, I love drawing for a long time, and a lot of times I don't practice a lot, and it sucks, because then I come back in a year's time, and I'm like, oh God, I've gotten worse over time. But when I do practice a lot, I feel like I'm just able to improve so much. So it is just so important to keep going, pushing forward, pushing through the difficult times. And sometimes you might need something more than just like self-discipline. You might really need a reason, and need motivation, or just whatever you can find that is like your motivation, your reason. That is the most important thing to find. For me, I have my own personal things that push me to go through things, and that's really important. For you, just try to figure it out. It could be something you could even journal, document about, like what gives you that motivation, what makes you really want to do something. It could be anything, and if you can find that reason, that's going to help you so much to get through the difficult times. Because I find that without a real reason, it's hard for me to be motivated to do certain things that I don't enjoy, because again, it's like fear is always in the back of the mind, and it's always trying to stop me. It's always finding reasons why I shouldn't bother. Fear is this little annoying little voice that sits in the back of my head and go, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And when you just push through it and do it for a period of time, it just starts to really fade, and then your voice is going to be like, why was I so worried about that? Like, what was so hard about that? It's like, I'm thinking now, like, why was I so worried about writing this thing? Because I do remember in the past, I've written 2 paragraphs, and I was like, oh God, I suck. Then I deleted it, because I was like, I can't handle this. I can't read this thing and be okay with it. But, after I've read it 50 times, and I've edited about 50 times, and I've rewritten it so many times, I'm reading it over now like, oh wow, this actually flows really well, or oh, I've done something really clever there. I've played with words. And a lot of times I don't think of that right away. It takes like maybe 10 times for me to come up with something clever. And it's just spending that extra time working on it is what made the difference. So like that, I guess like what I really want to say is a lot of people are not born with like natural talent to be able to perfect things in the first run. And it really does take a lot of persistence, and I've really learned that from my own experience with writing, with drawing, with pretty much everything that I've been doing, and with even videos. Like making videos, another thing. If you had seen, like, I don't think I had that first video up anymore, but if you ever seen my first video, which was like, it was like one of those pink days, you know, when I used to make videos in my pink room and stuff. I mean, I still love pink, but I just don't, like, care about having everything pink in a pink room anymore, you know what I mean? Like, just my aesthetics have changed over the years. But back then, you know, I made my first video, and I still remember how awkward and nervous I sounded. I was like, oh, I can't even speak properly. I remember I was stuttering a lot, and oh my god, I don't, like, it's a shame I don't think I have that video up anymore, but if I do find it, I might re-upload it. I don't know, like, just, it's just so funny to look back on, because it's like, geez, I cannot believe it. And now I'm able to string it together more sentences than one, and I don't feel like I'm sounding too silly sometimes. I do sometimes, but you know, I don't feel like I'm just completely like at a loss of what to say. So it is coming, it's from skills, it really is from practicing. It's from doing it over and over. Your brain kind of starts to figure things out. That's what I find. And my cat is in the background playing with string lights, and he looks so cute there, doesn't he? Hello, baby. Hello, darling. So anyway, yeah. So just if there's anything I would love for you to try to do, is to do something that you're a little bit nervous about, because we're all about just trying to overcome our fears. That's like, if that's one thing I want to motivate people to do, is to overcome their fears, because God, it's like fears has been everything to stop me in my life with everything. Like, I can just imagine how much I would have been able to do with almost everything in my life if I wasn't so afraid to be bad, afraid to lose, afraid to look stupid, afraid to sound stupid, afraid to do this and that. It all comes down to being afraid of what other people think. And that's why I love Gary Vee's videos so much, because a lot of his videos are all about not fearing what people think. And whenever I watch them, I do find that I feel so strong. Like, I just feel so strong about like facing my fears. It is like I could be like putting off something for a long time, and as soon as I watch that, like, hey, let's overcome our fears, let's not care about what people think, it really makes a difference. That's what I really want to do, is to just, like, I don't know, just motivate some people to face their fears. Because just imagine, like, I keep imagining, if I had started my videos 10 years ago, I could have had a library of stuff that is so valuable, but I let all that go. And I know I can't change the past, so I'm not going to even try. All I can do is just make up for it as much as I can, and I'm really glad I'm doing that. I feel so happy, and it's just, yeah, it's and don't worry so much. Like, I always say this now, that it's absolutely not necessary, in my opinion, to care so much about showing up perfect, because a lot of times we forget that people don't like things that are too perfect. Like, I know I've heard of a lot of people say they hate perfect characters, fictional characters that are too perfect and not pleasant to read, or whatever it is. Like, if we're not even liking fictional characters that are perfect, then we don't need to be too perfect. So it's that's just something I've learned. That's something I randomly thought of, and I just like, wow, that's a really good way of thinking things. Like, if I get thinking, like, people don't like perfect fictional characters, why do they? Why are we trying so hard to be absolutely perfect with everything? I don't think it's even necessary. So that's probably why I don't care as much about like doing everything perfectly anymore. Like, I'm fine with, like, you know, having a video that's not that edited, because I'm just like, you know what, that's just life. You know, I'm gonna mix up some words and stuff up some words, and that's just, you know, I can't I don't want to like waste so much time perfecting everything to make it so perfect, but just saying the word perfect too many times. So anyway, that's it. Hopefully you have a really wonderful day, and go and do something that really matters to you, because that's so important.